And Leslie will be appointing Charlie Noors as treasurer at the meeting on Friday. So there we go. Item number number 2, discussion of budget versus actual. Lisa did send out a revised version of that because there was a formulaic problem again in the year-to-date budget amount. So let's put those up, Helena or Lisa, whoever's doing that, and ask Helena to give us some status on budget to actual.
Maybe Joe can, because I can. I gotta tell Joe. Maybe Joe.
I don't have permission.
You don't?
No.
Oh, I thought you have permission for all of those meetings. Well, let's see what. Oh, I think Joe went through it. There was a delay.
I don't know if you can hear my whining cat, but
I didn't think it was Linda.
well, the cat has, he wants to jump up here. That's bad.
Oh,
He's a dictator, and I want to assure you all that he has no vote.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Okay, go ahead, Helena.
so this is the summary, like I always have the summary sheet. If you go through all of the regional RPAP, all our grants, you will see we will be with the budget because it's only 2 months we in. The few things I would like to, so Joe can go through all this thing. There's no deficit yet, we kind of with the budget. The few things I want to point out at this is the Park Connect, the program that we have, a pilot program over the starting, when you look at starting in May 20, that's whole year, starting in May, starting in May 20 and ends on Labor Day. So when you see all this is not that one. Oh, wow. What happened to my Park Connect? Oh, okay, yeah, because we didn't have, we didn't have revenue. I just got nervous. We didn't collect revenue, so there was no revenue. So you can scroll it down a little bit, go up, so we can see bottom. Yeah, so the expenses was 172 and DOT allocate 180,000 on hourly rate. So we end up having some little surplus of 84. So that's what I want to say.
Okay.
That, so that's when you look at it on the summary sheets for budget versus actual, you saw those. Everything else, it's with the budget. The other thing I want to point out is the Summary Care Act.
Before we leave this, do you want to just mention that
What?
DOT decided that we were going to build this on an hourly basis, so
Yeah,
we
okay.
actually can keep any.
So, yeah, so that's why, yes, they actually, we built an hourly rate where we give them, and we end up with surplus 84. So they allow us.
So we get to keep the 84.
Correct.
The whole $8,400, yes.
Yes.
Don't spend it all in one place. Okay.
Well, yes, they're still working. They haven't sent us money, but we're waiting for the 180,000. So that will help us cash flow. I just want to show you our CARE Act money, which is split between Extra Mile, and that was allocated 960. So we use up 192. So we remained in balance, and Extra Care, Extra Mile is 767,825. The other part was the rest we can charge to it. So we spent between draw and obligated, which is I haven't draw yet, 322,881, and remaining balance it's 1,217,19. But this is one grant split between two. So when you look at total, that we still have it out of $2.5 million. We still have one and $1,985,000. That's why I just want to show you guys we still have them on.
Okay. Helena, is this these are the grants that DOT is telling us we're not spending quickly enough?
Oh,
Yes.
well, we work on it. We just submit some other stuff. Joe and I working last week, and we submit them for new grant. That's why we have to show them we spend on that. So because we want to receive money from the second round of the CARE Act. So we
Mhm.
did work on it and we submitted to DOT. I don't know if Joe heard anything from them back or, but we showed
No.
them how we can spend it and what is that so we can get more money for merger and some extra money for, I think 23, 22, some portion of 21, 22, 23, and 20, a full amount money we need for year 23, 24.
Okay, Joe, is there anything else you want to share with us about the communications with DOT on this extra CARES Act money?
There's nothing new. So you know, we had this group doesn't know that we had a meeting with them about 3 weeks ago. And they wanted to know why we hadn't spent more of our CARES money because they're working on the splits for the next round, for the second and third rounds of money. So certainly a part of the reason is that we just haven't drawn everything because we haven't needed to. Because of our strong fund balance, we have the luxury of being able to wait, reduce the number, so we can reduce the number of draws that we do. Because FTA, you know, not that they don't allow lots of draws, but the more draws, the more they look at, the more, more paperwork.
Mhm.
And so we try not to do lots and lots of draws. So we did come up with a whole sheet of what a whole layout, a list of the things that number one expenses that we've already had that need to be drawn. And then we also came up with our wish list for the second and third rounds of money.
Okay, so
And-
we're in pretty good shape as far as justifying receiving more money.
I think doing that certainly helps, but more activity on the grant would make them even happier. It's the same as FTA. They like to see activity on the grant. They like to see you drawing and spending
So
down.
do we have plans to show that?
Well, that's something we were planning on discussing at the regular board meeting,
Okay,
as you
All right.
remember.
Yep,
we
that's
discussed previously that there are some opportunities where we can, now that we kind of have some idea of what our longer term expenses and lost revenue are. I think we're more comfortable maybe speeding up some other operating costs that we already have worked with DOT to approve for some more down the line and speeding them up so that we're not, obviously we don't want to commit to anything that we can't sustain beyond the CARES Act because this is one-time money, or even this next second, third rounds, because they're all one-time programs. So we don't want to commit to like new service that will be hard to continue beyond that. Even though one of the things we did ask for was the funding for the Route 81. Because saying that because the pilot was so impacted by COVID that we asked for another 3 years to run that.
Oh, no.
Other than that, it's similar to what was done for Extra Mile.
Okay.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's certainly other expenses that we might want to move up a year or 2 years from what was indicated in the study. So it's already been approved by DOT in later years. So we're only taking on the cost of a year or two, or maybe 3, and not forever. If I'm explaining that well.
Okay, so we'll have more information on that on Friday then.
Yeah, we were going to talk about that more on Friday.
Okay.
What format we want. We should probably talk about what format we want to, what that level of detail we want to present some of that in.
Okay.
Also, I just want to add that we start audit. So the auditors came and did preliminary. So when we close the audit, all the deficit, any deficit we have in grant will be eligible for also CARE Act. So we will draw and close the year. So make sure we don't have a deficit. So the part of the money, the CARE Act, we can allocate to that deficit.
Okay, good, good. Does anyone on the committee want to go through each of these individual programs on budget to actual? Or are you comfortable with the information that's been provided?
I'll start off by saying I think the information that's been provided is pretty thorough. So I accept that.
Okay, Peter, thank you. Carl, are you good with it?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay. All righty, Helena, thank you. Next item is discussion of cash flow. Hi, Charlie, welcome.
Hi. Sorry, I got messed up and late joining.
No problem.
You can look at this cash flow. It looks pretty good as long as we receive money on time. We've been DOT owns us still a lot of money. When you look at that, they own us money from June 2021. I contacted yesterday the person and they said they sent to account payable, so we should receive some money, a good chunk at a week or so. So this cash flow still look good as long as we receive those money. So when you look at it, Park Connect, they own us $180,497, and they working on it. The 152 and 15, 152 is the June payments. They hold it up because we're supposed to submit some reports to them, and we did. And I don't know, I guess took them long to go through CARE Act reports. We submitted, but they were okay, so they paying now. So we should, like I said, receive 152 with a week. So plus their money for 2021, quarterly, some monthly. Municipal grant also 263, haven't sent yet. So they've been a little slow on the paying. So our general fund that we have helping our cash flow very much. So we don't have to go and borrow it and do all this stuff. As long as we receive this money, we still be in a good shape.
Okay,
Okay.
very good.
Can
Any
I
questions for Helena?
interrupt?
Sure.
Does anyone else have a big thing in the center that says the meeting is being recorded? And how can am I the only one who has this big thing sitting in the middle of the screen?
You have to
Just
accept.
click on it.
Click
Got
on
it.
it where it says got it. Or
Does that
okay.
what you want? Yeah.
Okay, well, don't waste time. If I can get rid of it, I'll get rid of it. If I can't, it stays there. Just let's move the meeting. Thank you.
Okay,
So like I said, we should be in good shape.
okay. Any questions for Helena on cash flow? Okay, didn't think so. Discussion of salary increases. This is something that we normally deal with at the more like in November or December. And we are looking to have an increase earlier. I'm going to ask Joe to give us a little bit of background, but Helena, if you go over to drivers
Yes,
on that spreadsheet.
yes. Joe, click
Or
on the
who's-
bottom, the driver saying, the first one. This is summary sheet together.
Yeah.
Lisa,
It's
the same drivers that are on this first spreadsheet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
All right,
Um,
go ahead, Helena.
I
Explain what
explain
that
a little
is.
bit. I know it's easy for me because I deal with these numbers and I not always put it the way you guys would understand. So if anybody has a question or something, they more than welcome call me. And when I will try to get to you guys all the numbers as early as I can, so you can, if you have a question, we can go over. And I appreciate that if you guys do that. So this is the first one is that we did, Joe and I talk about it, and we decide to calculate and give, and Joe will tell you why. I think that's the reason why we usually give the raises. Last year, we give drivers raises in January, but we decided this year, give them a little early. And Joe, like I said, Joe will explain why. So what I did here, I took regular hours the drivers usually spend on the services for, it's about 9 months now, and in overtime. And I calculate the cost if you give them dollar, which is dollar if you see, it came out with $31,550. And then I calculate what the cost in benefits approximately. So that's around 96.50. So total cost to give drivers salary, $1 salary increase from October 4, 2021 to June 30, 2022 will cost $41,200. Then we did, I just wanted Joe suggest to show you guys an annual increase. So it's the same thing if they go whole year, the whole year. Joe, can you scroll it down a little bit? The cost went up to 43,000, and benefits 12,350, which is total 55,500. That's annual increase dollar for the drivers.
One other point to mention is that this would bring the driver's hourly rate from $18 to $19. So Joe, why don't you give us a little bit of background on the pressures that we're feeling on this and why you'd like us to go ahead with this?
Sure. So we've been looking at where other pay is. Of course, we all know, we're all hearing about the labor shortages. It's particularly bad with drivers. Has been bad with drivers for a while, but this is the worst we've ever seen it. I know it's not any news to anybody. It's kind of everywhere, all over the media lately, and everywhere you look, there's help wanted signs. But in our industry, it's definitely driving up wages. We've seen school bus really go up a lot lately. You can see here, for everyone's seeing this. I don't know why I can't. Oh, here's the Zoom. It's a little different spot here. So we looked at some of the surrounding area, and we are no longer, starting at the same as everyone else where we were before. So, I mean, I'm sorry, we were a little ahead of others. These are starting to pay, but that's starting before you even get your CDL. So we require a CDL. We don't have trainers to get people their CDL. So once they get it, they're making even more than this. And we put this together about 2 months ago, and already I've seen them, many of them advertising higher now, and a sign-on bonus. So we need to, obviously we need to stay competitive. It's getting to the point where we're still able to fill full-time positions where they come available, but we don't have the selection we used to have. You get a few people, not a lot. And part-time is very, very hard to fill right now. It's become very hard. And so we're perpetually short people. But the other side of it is we 3 or 4 years ago, when the legislature first passed the minimum wage to go up to 15 over was 5 years. We knew at that time we were going to have to continue to rise with with the minimum wage. At that time, our minimum wage, our starting pay was 15. So we're just over that. And so we've had an effort over the past several years. That's why we actually used to always be July 1st. We switched to January 1st for drivers, but still July 1st for other staff, because we were giving $1 every year. and it was to kind of spread it out over a longer or shorter period in each fiscal year. So we've had an effort for the past several years, knowing that with minimum wage getting up to 15, we had to keep our differential at least close to where it was beforehand when minimum wage was 10. We wanted to, again, make it worth it for people to go out and get their CDL license and carry people. Obviously, it's a very different job than a lot of the fast food and retail jobs that are very shortly going to be. I think minimum wage is, I think it's this month, it goes up to 13 now. So that's the other wage pressure going on right now, is that minimum wage rising and making sure we have a good differential between the minimum wage and our starting pay.
Joe, did you consider anything more than $1? And the second question is, did you consider signing bonuses?
So we didn't consider signing bonuses. It's something we can look at. It's something we are doing in Middletown. Middletown, our rates are lower because of they're bargained. And we're still, even there, we're looking at having to raise them and possibly change the rate mid-contract because we just can't hire people. And we did not look at hire, and only because we could do it now because we have the CARES money. But then we'll have to we probably won't be able to do another. We'd have to factor that into future year increases. We might have to keep it. I did think about it. I didn't do it the price because obviously it would just be double. But I think it is certainly something we could consider if everyone's open to that. It basically would be moving next year's increase earlier. Again, we have the money now, but it's all this one-time money that one day runs out, and then we're back to our normal budget. And so we'll have to, let the budget catch up at some point.
Since most of our competition is school routes and school bus drivers, do they typically have a time of year when they increase their rates? Is it usually at the beginning of the school year?
They're all kind of different. I know that DACO has a wage progression, so they give you a raise every year on your anniversary. And a lot of the others, not really. No, they depends on if they're unionized or not. Most of them are not, but a few are. And so the other ones, it's kind of, I think it's really driven by the labor market. They've all been steadily increasing over the past several years as everybody's had a tough time hiring. But this year we saw the biggest increase we've seen, I think, ever. We're advertising much more than they were just a year ago. So they might, if they continue to struggle, some I know have been adjusting it pretty regularly.
Joe, maybe you could go in a little more detail. The bus driver situation, everybody seems to be short of them. And I was wondering if there's you might have an insight into how we're going to handle that.
So at Estuary, we've been just making it, but it's really because of our effort that we started 10 years ago to have more full-time drivers, because that's what we're still able to hire. We're still able to hire full-time. Part-time is very, very hard, especially since I think what you're hearing out just again nationally is that, and I know what we've seen. Well, we saw in Estuary too. We're seeing it Middletown right now more. What we saw at Estuary at the beginning of the pandemic is definitely saw people leave the workforce altogether that were older. And that's really where a lot of our part-time people have always been, is people who are older and just looking for some, 25 hours a week. So a lot of them did leave the workforce. Again, nationally, you're seeing people that I'm done working for various, either just wasn't worth it anymore because of all the concern of getting sick and everything else, or just, had several up in Middletown to say it. This whole pandemic, we reevaluate things, and life's too short. I want to enjoy the rest of my retirement. So I think that's pulling some of the where we used to get a part-time labor pool from. It's shrunk that down.
Joe, how
So-
does the unionized labor at Middletown, their pay scale or whatever, are you having any difficulty integrating them with how you're trying to negotiate on your side?
We're not doing it yet because we haven't combined that part of our workforce yet. That's not planned for until next year. So right now they're separate, and the union contract is actually a lower rate than our rate. So that will be, it's going to be interesting negotiations. But as I considered earlier, we're having to look at in Middletown potentially raising the rate earlier. So it's just because we can't get workers. We just cannot get drivers in. It is
And even at that, Joe,
really tight.
the differential is still very substantial hourly.
And it will
So
still be. I mean, if
if
we
we
up
go
to
to-
$1.50, it's still.
If we go to
substantial.
19, what will Middletown be?
Middletown right now is 16.50,
Okay, it's huge
and
difference.
yeah, and so we're trying to get up to 18. We put in for $1.50. We actually, it was for Middletown's one of our CARES money or whatever, that's the other programs money request, because we're making the case that the rates are being driven up by COVID. We all know that that's a fact, that it's a pandemic driven labor shortage. So we're making the case that we need to use some of these COVID relief funds to do that, because we didn't have this kind of problem beforehand, and we've already raised it up to the top of the contract. We actually we were supposed to get up to 16.50 in the last year of the contract. We had to accelerate that just to retain people and be at 16.50. We were at 15 a year ago. So
Yeah.
And again, before the pandemic, we were still able to hire people. It wasn't easy, but we hired people. Now it's so hard in Middletown. And it's not, the part-time is hard in Estuary. It definitely is. Especially since we rely on, because like I said earlier, we don't have a trainer. And it's just typical in this industry that most transit agencies do not train for CDL. There's some that do, but most do not. You typically do recruit from school bus. School bus usually has a good training operation, which every school bus operator does, and that's how you pull people in. So you really need to be above their starting rate, because as I said earlier, their starting rate is for, if you don't have your CDL, come in and you'll start at 18. Once you get your CDL, you get moved up and they move you up from
Okay.
there. So if we want to look at 20, I think that's not a bad idea at all with our CARES money right now. But again, then we probably would have to delay next year's longer. that it would be $1. And that would put us to the 20, which is where we want to be in the end, when all the escalations were done with the minimum wage. That was our goal. We had several years ago when that was passed. When it got to 15, that we'd be at 20.
Okay. Charlie and Carl, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, you've got to consider it in terms of the competitive market, what you're faced with right now in terms of, keeping the people that we have and keeping them, competitive. The local one here, has signs outside their on their property. You're fighting a tough battle, with the whole concept of help wanted signs just all over town. Everybody's looking for help. And I think you have to go along with keeping your health, well paid and happy enough that they're going to stay with us. So what's that magic number? I don't know. I think we've got to, rely on Joe's evaluation of this. And it seemed a little startling to me that, we have this increase starting here in October. But if that's what the market demands, then so we have to go along with it. I mean, we can't afford to lose drivers to other people, other companies. I think that's the reality that we're facing right now. And I don't question the amount or the timing of it. I think if that's what it is, we got to keep our drivers, otherwise we're out of business.
Okay, Carl?
I get the market pressures and I know how hard it is to hire, especially part-time. Those are issues I'm dealing with right now on the town side. I do have a little bit of a hesitation because you're going to have to true this up at some point in time when there's a merger. So how are you going to bring everybody up to some sense of pay equity? Or is the negotiating position going to be there's always going to be a differential between the two halves? And you got CARES Act money now to burn, but once that's gone, obviously that puts pressure on your regular operating budget. So that's sort of a long-term issue. And then short-term, are you actually losing employees, or are they you just can't recruit new ones?
Joe?
Mostly it's hard recruiting. We haven't really lost many people to other jobs. However, what I do see is when we look in Indeed, do resume searches, I've never seen so many of our own employees with resumes up. So I know, and they're all bus drivers because they know the market's good right now for bus drivers. So I right now see 4 of our drivers actively updating their resume in Indeed. So we saw a lot of people leave earlier, but it wasn't, again, it was before this really happened. It was COVID reasons.
Yeah.
So I
Joe?
think we will see some people leaving when they get an offer and with a sign-on bonus and all, a higher pay rate. Some people just look for the pay rate and not the benefits.
Joe, I know that the payment rate is a major issue, but can you cope with the fact that they use, the bus companies and school system uses their drivers for a limited time of day, or am I wrong? Because if you can drive a bus at 8 o'clock in the morning and you're through at 9, now you have an opportunity to have a main job. So I was just wondering if you could comment on that part of it.
So on the school bus side, you have to work the mornings and the afternoons usually. They're looking for people who do both. So for somebody to keep a school bus job, they have a very limited time window in the middle of their two runs, their morning and their afternoon. And that doesn't fit into our schedule because we would need somebody work before them, after them. You know, our span is too long for that to work. We've had a number of people want to do that over the years, and it's never works out. The people that do it, we don't have it anyway right now. It's actually driving a school bus. A while back we did, and they would mostly just do Saturdays. Is what they
Okay,
did.
thank you,
Trying to remember
Joe.
because it's been a long time since that happened.
Joe,
you.
thanks, Peter. With regard to Carl's comment about the short and long term on the differentials between the union and estuary, it's not just a salary differential. We have significant benefit differences.
Yeah. Yep.
As well. And those are also materially higher at estuary than they are under the contract. And this is clearly going to be one of the issues that we're faced with in terms of how that gets negotiated, how the workforce is handled once the districts combine, and who's going to pay for it in the long term. Although DOT has told us, committed to us, that they will pay for that equity and parity to take place. Given what you just said about the union, they are looking to go from 1650 to 18 at this point.
That's what we're trying to come up with the money to do that.
Okay,
They
so
haven't. It's going to have to be driven by us. It's being driven by the market. It's not.
right, but my
They
point is that
They can't make us negotiate. Mid.
no, but
Contract.
if they get to that point, we will only have $1 differential.
Right. We had, and when we did the study, the differential, they were starting at 13, while we were starting at 16. So we had a $3 differential when we did the study.
So
And so the monies from the study was based on those numbers. So, so as you said, DOT is committed to making up that differential. This will not make the differential any larger.
right. So is your recommendation then is that we accept a $1 hourly increase for drivers for the period October 4th through June 30th, and that that be approved? That's your best judgment about what we need right now to address the problem?
I think that will help a lot to be starting at 19. I mean, is it going to be easy to get drivers? No, because everyone's hurting, but it should make it better.
Okay.
I mean, there's just simply not enough drivers to go around. But
Alrighty. Are we
hopefully
prepared?
we steal some.
Okay. Why don't we leave this for a minute and go to staff and talk a little bit about that, because those increases are also included here. Helena, why don't you let us just walk us through these numbers, please?
So this is a staff, everybody, dispatchers, and salary employee and estuary. This is actually be retroactive to July 1st. That's mean whole this cost, it's annual cost. And it's 3% because we got TOD for 3% and we give them 3% increase. So this is the cost, 9,000, almost 10,000 in the salary and little over.
So that would be effective July 1st,
Correct.
22.
July 1st to June 2.
22. It's not
Correct.
it's not retroactive. Okay.
No,
How
it
are,
is.
how are
From July
shared,
1st, July 1st,
From
21.
July 1st, it's retroactive will be because we already pay and now we have to go from like if next payroll from before next, I will give them retroactive and then starting this one, that's how they'll work. We
I'm
will
confused.
give them new
What-
salary.
what's the effective date of this raise for staff?
July 1st, 2021. Yes.
So it
okay.
is, it is retroactive
Yes,
to June
to July
30th.
1st,
Okay, it's July 1st of 21 to June 30th of 22.
correct. Yes.
How are shared staff being handled in this? Does this just represent estuary's share of those?
Yes,
shared-
it's all the staff who is on estuary TODs, which is which is me, Lisa, Chris, Patrick, our director of maintenance, and I believe 2 dispatchers.
This is the full, but this is their full cost, not what we share, right?
Yes,
Yes, okay. All right, so this is an annual cost. And
Mhm.
we have, in the past, have we been, is this consistent, the 3% with what we have done previously?
yes. I think that's what they got last
Or
year.
2.5. We usually do whatever the TOD is. So if the TOD goes up 2.5%, then we'll do 2.5%. If it goes up 3%, we do 3%. So
Okay,
they gave us 3% extra this year.
okay. So what you're recommending is a salary increase package that would include a $1 per hour increase for estuary drivers effective October 4th through June 30th of 2022, and a 3% increase for administrative staff effective July 1st, 21 through June 30th, 2022. And this would all be funded basically through CARES money.
Not all of it, because 3% of our TOD went up
Some of
3%.
them,
I'm
it's
sorry, well,
included
some of it would be
3%.
state.
So, yeah, so I just did that quickly. So the reason we kind of stagger the timing is because drivers will be getting more than 3%, or more than 2.5%.
They're getting almost
So
6.
this is almost
It's almost
6.
6% for them.
So 3% is covered by the TOD,
Hmm.
which would be going up to 1854.
Mhm.
So the extra 46 cents
Is CARES.
right.
Okay.
Hey, Joe?
Yes,
Joe, did the staff receive, didn't they receive an increase starting July 1st of this year when we did the budget, for,
we put it in the
Put it in
budget,
the
but we don't give it until we get the TOD. So we always built it into the budget for July 1. But until we know what DOT is going to increase us by, we don't actually give it.
are you
Because
saying,
when we make the budget, we don't know what they're really giving us.
that as of July 1st, the staff did not get an increase over last year?
That's correct. We always wait until we get the documents from the state where we know what we're getting. Because if the state holds us flat, then
Okay,
it doesn't matter what our budget is. We have to now reevaluate and see if we can afford what we can afford.
Okay.
okay, all right. Now, how about the drivers there? Didn't they get an increase in the 1st of July?
Nope, January 1st of last year.
Okay,
Yeah, we don't do anything until we get our transit operating document, because we just don't know. It could be flat, it could be an increase, it could be a decrease. We've seen all 3. So until we know what our financial situation is for the year, we don't do anything, despite what's in our budget, because our budget in the end isn't terribly relevant when most of our funding comes from CONDOT, and it all depends on what they do.
Okay.
thank you.
Alrighty. If everyone is amenable, I would like to ask for a motion to recommend that the estuary board approve a $1 per hour raise for estuary drivers effective October 4th through June 30th of 2022, and a 3% raise for estuary staff effective July 1st, 21 through June 30th, 2022.
So moved.
Made.
Thank you, Peter. Second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Charlie. Further discussion? Okay, there being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion is passed. We will forward that on to the board meeting on Friday. Thank you. Next item of business is the extra mile fares. You'll recall that we voted conceptually to begin to charge for that service, which we have never done in the past, and asked Joe and Helena to come up with some recommended options for how this would be handled. And that's what you see here. The first column shows you what we're currently doing, which is no cost. Option 1 is the $1.75, 2 is $2, 3 is $3.50. Helena or Joe, why don't you give us any explanations you think are necessary and what your recommendation is?
So, yes, we came up with a few different options here. The $1.75 option, in option 1 is from using our fixed route fare. So that we keep it exactly the same as our fixed route. You said, see, I kind of guessed on what the average fare is. The average fare is what we actually collect per trip. That number is always less than our base fare because of things like transfers and multi-use passes, because we discount a 10 ride pass, we discount time-based passes like day passes and monthly passes, and then of course, and then a transfer, of course, cuts the fare in half. So if they say came off of took the extra mile to Middletown, for instance, like went to the train station, then hopped on the bus to Middletown, which people do. Each route only got half of that fare because you get a free transfer. So that's how you end up with an average fare that's lower than your actual base fare. The other way on the fixture side that your average fare gets lowered is through the senior disabled fare that you have to have on fixed route, which is 85 cents. So another thing that dilutes your fare down, but we don't have to do that here because it's demand response. We don't need to have a half fare at all. We could just have one fare. But however, I did factor in, because there's a lot of connections to fixed route, we did factor in the fact that to allow them to use the different fare media that we have, like a monthly pass, 10 ride pass, day pass, all those different things to make it easier to go between services. So then I kind of projected out ridership for each option based on what has been found to be the elasticity of demand for fares and transit service, which is it's a 5% elasticity. So every percent that you raise your fare, you lose 5. You lose 5% in ridership. Yeah. So not 5%. Sorry. Every 10. So it's 0.5. Every 1% is 0.5. So 10% increase, you lose 5% of ridership. Yeah. And so that's how the numbers decline there. Just figuring in going from free to paid, and then everything's a little decline more than after that because you charge more money. There's our operating costs, projected fare revenue based on what we project the ridership to be in the average fare, and then what you're left with for an operating deficit, which is funded by grants and the cost per trip. So it's just kind of see, and then why we graphed it out is that assuming the elasticity demand, which has, it's been the number for a very long time. It's the 20 years I've been in this business, that's been the number. So assuming that holds as true, even if you raise the fare up to the highest levels, you probably don't see a very large change in your revenues because of the amount of ridership drops. So going that high probably doesn't lead to a lot more fare revenue. And then the 350 came from what our dollar ride fare is. So option 1 is our fixed route, option 3 is our dollar ride. Option 2 is something in the middle. If we said, well, we want to evaluate a little higher than our fixed route because it is a more premium service, maybe we want to go a little bit higher, but not quite dollar ride high. So that was kind of the $2 was an easy number in the middle, without having lots of change in there, because the cash fare the change would be difficult.
Joe, you, I'm not sure I understood this, but every time we have a modest increase in fare, we lose some of our passengers. If that's correct, that's surprising, because there doesn't seem to be an alternative where they can go and find anything cheaper. So I was wondering if I had heard it correctly.
That is true. That is what has been found over many, many years of data on the correlation of fare increases to ridership. It's not necessarily that they leave for something different. It could be that they just reduce their frequency of travel. So maybe you do more in one trip than you would otherwise.
One other thing we don't know, Peter, along those lines is while there are well-established metrics for elasticity of demand, which Joe has applied in these options, Extra Mile is a rather unique service. And we really don't know what the price resistance might be to that, because it's been so popular and there's only one of a kind of that kind of service available to people. So we would have to monitor that and see
Yeah,
if
it's hard.
hard
Those are
to tell.
national numbers. So
Yeah.
how does it impact locally? Yeah, obviously everyone's a little different. But nationally over the years, that has been found to be what the elasticity is. Is it going to be exactly that? Probably not. That's an average number nationwide.
Mhm.
But I do think that it will hold true that as you charge more, you will see less trips.
Mhm.
Will it be exactly this number? No, but
Thank you, Joe. Between you and Susan, I think I understand. So I thank you both.
and remember too, you're talking around. Most people are going to make a round trip, right? So you're talking $7 round trip. That's a lot of money. That's
You
a
mean
lot of money for a lot.
for option
Yeah,
3?
that's a lot. That's a lot of money for a lot of people.
Do you have an option you're recommending, Joe?
So I think the easiest, of course, is option 1 because it's our current fare structure. It's simple. I kind of between option 1 and 2, but I also see that maybe we want to have a little extra charge since it's something premium over fixed route, and going to, even though it's a small increase over it, it does kind of differentiate it as a more premium service and charging to charge a little more. So I think it's kind of just whether we want to say this is premium and we want to charge more, but not overly more. Because the other thing to think about an option, if you go towards option 3 as well, that's $3.50 is our fare from Clinton to Middletown. Should that also be the fare from Old Saybrook to Old Saybrook?
Right.
That Extra Mile doesn't go very far. It's what, I think 4 or 5 miles at its widest.
Mhm.
So when you look at the different types of services we have, I think going that high doesn't really make sense, and I think it would really have a strong impact. I think
Joe,
between 1 and 2, minimum impact.
Okay, question for you on the merger. We will be embarking on a fare structure analysis once the districts combine and we are administering all of those routes under one umbrella. Does one of these options versus another suggest it would be better until we get to the point where we actually do a fare analysis?
So I think sticking with what we currently have is probably easier for that. However, we all know that then trying to up it later would be hard.
Okay, well, conversely, treating it as a premium service and going for the $2 now, after a fare study, we could always lower it.
Yeah, nobody's gonna complain that we go lower.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you try and now say, oh, all this time we treat the same as Fixed Street and now we're gonna go higher. Obviously, people are not, you'll get a little pushback. It's not big dollar appliance.
Okay.
We've never
Carl,
really had much pushback on fare increases, but
okay, Carl has to leave, but and thank you for staying as long as you could. Charlie, do you have an opinion about this?
Well, I am looking at the difference per 25 cents is $600. And I'm wondering if, you lowered it below 175 or however much. I mean, the amount of money that your deficit is, it's minimal. And I wonder if that, would be an attraction to get more riders. And I know Joey has his numbers here as to what happens when you lower when you change the fare. I see a lot of people who are doing this, and they're all at the lower end of the economic ladder. And I don't know, I somehow get a feeling that, this would encourage people with a lower fare to use it more. So, based on the differential of 25 cents, it's $600 in your operating deficit. I mean, that's not
no,
really a
small impact.
Yeah, the fare, you're right, Charlie. Imposing a fare is not gonna do much for our bottom line. And one of the things we talked about at the last meeting was not continuing to provide what is a premium service free of charge. That we really worked the pilot project angle for several months longer than normally we would have because of COVID. So I guess what it boils down to is which of those options is philosophically and conceptually in line with how we charge for our other services, because we're not looking to make a lot of money, frankly, off of any of these options. All of the projected fee revenue is minimal, and that's not why we're doing it. So Charlie makes the point that would a lower rate than 175 encourage higher utilization? This is one of the services, isn't it, Joe, that continued to grow even during COVID?
Yes, and it's still growing.
And it's still growing.
Yeah.
My personal preference is option 2, because I feel we can always go down, and it is a premium service and it is more expensive to provide. And that it does provide a unique option for people to get around. I would not favor anything under than our fixed route base fare at this point. But Charlie, you and Peter need to tell us where you are on this.
Well, we certainly have a good silence here. We're
if we're-
thinking
if we're-
very hard. I'm trying to find.
The $1.75 number has always been a puzzle to me. It's such an unusual number. If you do it on a cash basis, it's very difficult. But, I would think starting out, you could go with option one, which leaves you the flexibility to, go either way, up or down. So, and, you standardize with what we charging on the other routes. So you've got a firm hold on that $1.75. You can play with it later on based on experience or whatever else we come out with the study for the rest of the operation. So to pick one of what's on this listing here, I would go for $1.75.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
Well, it looks as if $1.75 is unanimous. I wouldn't dare disagree with the two of you because you're well versed in it. And so I happily join you in the $1.75.
Well, I was
Okay,
actually,
Charlie?
I was actually going for option two, but I don't feel strongly enough. Joe, are you comfortable with option one, the $1.75?
Yeah, like I said, I feel like, I don't feel strongly between one or two. I just like it closer to the fixtured side than the dollar ride. And there was another point that was just raised. I forget what it was. Oh, I forgot what it was now. Charlie just raised a point.
I
that
feel your
going
pain.
I was going to comment on it. I thought he made a good point. And I don't remember what it was. But
Well,
I know what it was.
That'll low.
Where the $1.75 comes from. So
Oh.
that's another old thing that goes back to, they say an old, I think this goes way back to the days when it was well under $1, that you want the fare to be no more than 3 coins. When you get to off the dollar, that's not to be more than 3 coins. So you'll see that CT transit fares always are payable with 3 coins.
That's interesting.
That's an old
Yeah.
standard they say that you want to keep it 3 coins, no more than 3
Okay.
coins.
Before we vote on a motion at the $1.75, Joe, what is the time frame for implementing this?
So usually what we've done is we've passed it pending conduct approval, and then whenever it can be implemented by the executive directors, we usually say. It's because of the fact that we don't know when conduct approval will come. You're talking at least 3 months.
Okay, so should the motion include an effective date in it?
No, because we don't know when conduct will approve it.
Okay, so
So what we've
DOT,
usually said is pending conduct approval and to be implemented as soon as practical by the executive director.
okay, all right,
On those terms, so that, because we have to do fair hearings, we have to do all that stuff before we can even go to conduct and say, here's our proposal, because they won't want to see all that.
okay,
And then
all
they'll
righty,
sit on
so let's,
Joe,
yes, Charlie,
Joe, when does the funding that we've received from DOT, which I believe was 3 years, when does that time period phase out?
Oh, it's
24, I think that's the one.
June 30th, 2024, right?
23, 24, yeah, and the 24, June 24, 2020.
24.
Yes, and that was all figured at no fare. So
Mhm.
we do have the funding
So
for
with
no fare.
funding, Joe, did we meet our annual operating cost?
Oh, yes, we're well under it. We have the funding to continue it without a fare. We don't need the fare at all to continue the program.
okay. Could I have a motion, and Lisa, I'll try to do this slowly. A motion to recommend the ETD board approve a fare of $1.75 for extra mile service pending approval by CTDOT to be implemented as soon as practicable by our executive director. Is that
I'd move
sufficient?
that.
Is that sufficient, Joe?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Charlie. Further discussion? Okay, there being none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, thanks, everybody. Other business. Helena, do we have other business?
I don't.
All right, does anybody have any other things they'd
Just-
like to say? All right, the only other thing I'll say is that the next meeting will probably be December 15th. Since we're not meeting monthly as a finance committee, but Charlie, that's really up to you, but that would be the next meeting that would have been scheduled.
I think with depending on what happens tomorrow, Friday, on the board meeting, I think I'd probably like to at least schedule a meeting for November.
Okay. That's up to you.
And we can always, push it back to December, but a lot going on. And I think we should schedule a finance meeting for the middle of November.
Do you want to set a date for that now, or do you want to wait until after the board meeting to make a decision?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to wait till after Friday when we
Okay.
see what comes out of the board meeting. But
All right.
November would typically be the 17th if we were to have one. That's the way I'm looking at the calendar.
Okay, well, that will be your jurisdiction at that point, so
Yeah.
I'll leave it up to you and Helena and Joe to figure out what it is you'd like to do. All righty.
Okay.
There being no further business, we will motion to adjourn at 10:40. Peter, will you so move?
I'll make that.
Peter's already gone.
Charlie, you're the second. All right, so
Second.
we are done. Okay, guys, I'll see you Friday.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.